and welcome to the course on C Programming Learn to Code series. In this lecture, we will talk about do-while loop. So let's begin the discussion. C programming provides us three different looping techniques. One is called for loop, second one is called while loop, and third one is do-while loop. In the last three lectures, we talked about while loop, and in this lecture, we will talk about do-while loop. Well, we know that in a looping control structure, the statements that we want to execute multiple times, or if you want to execute some of the statement in your program multiple times, then you need to use this looping control structure. Okay, so do while loop gives this facility. So let us understand the syntax, how the facility has been provided by your do while loop. So suppose you have, these are the statements, you have some statements, you want to execute these statements multiple times. So there are statement 1 through n. So you want to execute it multiple times. Then the syntax of do while statement says you need to write all these statements inside the body of the do while loop. So how it looks like something this. So you have to use the do keyword. You have to write the do keyword, then the body of the entire do while loop is enclosed within two curly braces. So this part from here to here, you can say that this is the body of the do while loop. Okay, then you need to specify the condition. That means we know that to execute this statement multiple times, you need to have a condition. So until and unless that condition gets satisfied, these statements gets executed. So where you are going to write the conditions? Here you are going to write this condition using the while keyword, right? And remember, whenever you are writing the condition using while loop, don't forget to specify the semicolon. The semicolon is compulsory. If you forget to represent this semicolon, then your compiler may show you an error. So this is the stopping condition. That means until and unless the condition becomes true, the statements gets executed. When the condition becomes false, the control come out of this loop. Okay, so to make this condition false eventually, we need to have a update conditions, loop update conditions, which is written over here, something like this, increment or decrement. You know that for this loop update statement, either we can use increment or decrement, or some other techniques also we can use, that we have already discussed in the while loop section. So in do while also you can use those technique for loop update, and this loop update helps this condition to be false at some moment of time. Okay, so this is the necessary part of your do while loop or any looping control structure. So you need to specify this increment and decrement part for this loop update. But before you start the execution of these statements, you need an initialization line, which is called loop initialization. So this initialization line is also mandatory because that will helps the entire section to execute multiple times. So that means whatever statement present inside this curly braces will be executed until and unless the condition becomes false. Okay, let us understand the entire thing with the help of a flowchart. Remember, this initialization line will be executed only once, and the statements which are present inside the curly braces, even the increment and decrement statement also, everything will be executed until the condition becomes false. So let us clearly understand it with a simple flowchart over here. You can see here, first the initialization will be done. So initialization means assigning a value to a variable in some value, so that will help to start the execution of the statements present inside the body of the do while loop. So this initialization is necessary. After you initialize that variable, you can directly go into the body of the do while loop. But if you recall, in the while loop, we are actually, after initializing, we are actually going to the going to check the condition, but here it is not. Here after initialization we can directly go inside the body of the do while loop. As I have already told you, the body of the do while loop contains some statements that gets executed, and the body of the do while loop also contains an increment and decrement part which act as the loop update part that will be executed. After that the condition gets checked. If the condition becomes true, then we will follow a loop path. So this is the loop, and this loop will be created. Okay, so the condition becomes true, go to the body of the do while loop, execute all the statements present inside the body, then either perform increment or decrement, then go to the condition. If it is true, again go to the body of the do while loop, and so on. So this forms a loop actually. When the condition becomes false, we can come out of this loop, and that is called the exit from the loop. Okay, so this is how the do while loop works. This is the flowchart and this is the syntax. Now let us understand with a simple program where I want to execute some of the statement, like in while loop I have already shown you that. So by executing, I want to execute some of the statement using do while loop. So for that I am using the VS Code. Now what I am going to do is, let us first write the structure of C programming, that is hash include stdio.h, right? Then we will write, let's say, void main. Okay, then what I'm going to do is, I want to execute some of the statement. Let's say the statements are printf incredible India. Okay, let me use a \n over here, incredible India, right? So this is one statement. I want to execute it multiple times. Another statement that I am going to execute is I love my country. Okay, so this is I have written. Now I want to execute this two statement multiple times. So let's say 3 times, 4 times, that's depend upon you, but I want to execute it multiple times. Now where do I put this? I should put this two statement inside the body of the do while loop. So where do I put? I will put inside this curly braces, and this body is written followed by your do condition over here. So do this means do this two, that means execute this two, while I have to specify the while loop over here, while, so I need to specify a condition. So what will be the condition that I am going to tell you right now. So suppose I want to execute it for 3 times, then what I'll do is I will create a variable int I and I'll take it as 0, let's say. Okay, initialization. So this is the initialization line, right? Now to execute this two line multiple times, what I'll do is, inside the condition I will write I is less than 3. What will happen? I is 0, 0 is less than 3. So in the loop update part, what I'm going to do is, I'll write I is equal to I plus 1. So this is the increment part. As I have already told you in the discussion section, I told you this is the increment or decrement part must be there. Okay, so I'm using this increment part. Increment or decrement part is there, so I'm using this increment part to show you the discussion. And I can see I have incremented the value of I. So interestingly, you can notice that the two statement that I want to execute is already present inside the body, and this is the increment part, and this is the initialization part, and this is the stopping condition. So let us understand how it is executed. Let me show you first the output of this program, then I'll show you how this output will means after executing how these output are coming. So if you run this code, you can see the output will coming something like this. There will be 3 times the outputs will come. Now it is appear. So this is the first time it is printed, the second time this 2 line, and the third time the 2 line gets printed. Now let us understand how it is done. So to make you understand over here, let me use the pen tool. So you can notice that I have initialized I is equal to 0. So at this line, I is initialized to 0. Then after initialization, according to the flowchart, we will enter into the loop. So we have entered into the loop, means loop body. Then I will execute the first line, then the second line. So due to the execution of this two line, this part gets printed. Okay. Then we will execute this line. So when I will execute this line, I value becomes 1. Right. Then after executing all these three lines inside the body, we'll go for the while loop. So what I'm going to check, while 1 is less than 3. So 1 is less than 3. Condition true or false? True. So as it is true, we'll go from here to here. Remember, the initialization line will execute only once. The loop statement or the body of the statement gets executed multiple times until the condition becomes true. Okay. So we come here, again we start executing this two line. So when I execute this two line, we'll get print this two values. Fine. Then we'll increment the I value. So previously I value is 1, now it is 2. Then we check the condition, that is 2 is less than 3 or not. Again the condition is satisfied. So we'll come here again. This line gets executed, this line gets executed. So we get this two line as an output. Then I value is updated to 3. So when we come to this line, 3 is less than 3 gets executed, and the condition here is false because 3 is not less than 3. So when the condition becomes false, so we will come out of this loop. Right. So before we are coming out of this loop, we have already printed all these lines 3 times. So my objective is fulfilled. Now let me just play with these conditions so that you can easily understand what I am talking about. So suppose I told you that I want to execute it 10 times. So what you are going to do? I will be initialized with 0. You will write 10 here. So automatically the execution will be continued up to 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that will be 10 times. So let me show you what is the output is coming. So if you run it, you can see 10 times the output gets displayed. Similarly, if you want to change it to something like this, let's say I'll tell you that this will be 0, but instead of writing I equal to I plus 1, let's say I'll write I equal to I plus 2. What will happen? Obviously it will be reduced to 5 times because we are incrementing it with two values. So 0 becomes 2, then 2 becomes 4, and so on. So you can notice if you run this code, so 5 times this is getting displayed. 1, okay, 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. So 5 times this is getting displayed. Okay, so you can also play with these techniques because you know that the statements that you want to execute multiple times is here. The remaining 3 statement or 3 sections, as I have already told you, the initialization line, the condition, and the loop update is always necessary to execute it multiple times. Okay, you can do it with decrement operator also. So to make it with decrementation, that is increment and decrement, there are two things. So you can start with, let's say, 10. Okay, so let us execute it for 3 times only. So I is equal to 3. Then instead of writing I is equal to I plus 1, I can write I equal to I minus 1. Okay, so while I is greater than 0, so if I'll do that, then it will be executed for 3, 2, and 1. When 0 is greater than 0, the condition becomes false. So if you run this code, if you see it, you can see the output is coming as 3 times this things gets executed. Right. So how it is done? It is with your minus symbol. So it is not mandatory that you have to specify the loop update part with increment and decrement only. You can use any other way to stop these conditions. Like suppose I want to execute something like this. I will put I is equal to 5. Okay. And then what I am going to do is I will write I is equal to I divided by 2. Okay. And I will write here I is, let's say it will be greater than 0 maybe, or it can be I is not equal to 0. Okay, so this is also will do the same thing. So I will divide it, I value means the 5 value will be divided with 2, and we are trying to reduce the value by dividing it by 2. Then when I becomes 0, we will come out of this loop. So this is also work, this will also work. Let me show you. If you run this code, it is also displaying 3 times. So if you don't understand this, I'll try to explain you in a step by step. So let's say I equal to 5. Okay, so after I is initialized to 5, this line gets executed and this line gets executed, and we will able to print this 2 line. Then I will be divided by 2. So what will happen? 2 divided by 5. So 2 2s are 4, and we get what? 2. So I will be 2 at this place. Then we are checking 2 is not equal to 0. Condition satisfied. So when the condition gets satisfied, we'll come here. Then we'll execute for the second time this 2. So this gets displayed. So after displaying this, we will come to this line. This line means 2 divided by 2. So 2 1s are 2, we'll get 0. Okay, so what is the value of I? The value of I is now 1. So we are checking 1 is not equal to 0. Condition again satisfied. So when it is satisfied, we'll come here, we'll execute this and this. So we'll get the last 2 line. Okay, finally what I'm going to do is we'll divide 1 with 2. So 2 zeros are 0. So we'll get the remainder 1 and the output is 0. So now I value becomes 0. So when we come this line, 0 is not equal to 0, the condition becomes false. And we come out of this loop. Right. So when we come out of this loop, before we come out of this loop, we have already printed these things in 3 times. So not only that, you can use the divide symbol, or you can use the multiplication symbol, and you have to specify the condition in a proper manner so that these statements gets executed the number of time you want. If you want to execute it for 5 times, then accordingly you have to specify the initialization, then the loop update and the conditions in a proper manner. Okay, so this is something like you can think that if you want to execute some of the line multiple times, what should you write here, here and here, so that no more than that many times this statements gets executed. Okay, so I hope you understand the syntax of do while loop, and in the coming lecture what we are going to do is I will tell you what is the difference between while and do while loop, and we are trying to solve whatever problems that we have solved with your while loop itself. So that's all for the today's class. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.